Hey guys, how you doing? I want to offer some of my commentary as to Mike Brooks' cold calling strategies. He's very well respected in the space of sales, and it's an excellent, part of our process to really just go through some of the things that he says and to offer some of my kind of commentary on, some of the certain nuances. So one of the biggest things, as it says, power phone scripts and really just having kind of phrases and conversations to open and close more sales is a critical thing that, we should do as salespeople to really, engage potential leads into further conversations. So let's just have a look at some of the things that he says to kind of get into it. When someone answers the phone, is it cool to ask, is this a good time for you? Is this a good time for you? Really opens up the possibility of it being no. Busy people are busy, and without them really getting a sense of who you are, it's much better to move into a qualification, being succinct, short, friendly, and to the point as to who you are and how potentially you could help. As Mike Brooks says, that you're immediately giving the prospect a way out, right? So when you're asking, is this a good time for you, it's generally a pretty bad opener, because it lends itself to them saying, well, no, not at all, right? Engage with them, be personable, build some rapport, ask qualifying questions, be prepared, right? So the qualifying questions component of it, depending upon what you're selling, is really about you getting an assessment as to whether they're a fit for your business. So initially, you can begin with stating your offer, right? Hi, my name's Deepak Shukla. I'm calling on behalf of Pearl Lemon. We'd love to see if we can help Think Advisor double their leads in 60 days or less. Is that something that would interest your business potentially, Mike? Doubling your leads in 60 days or less, right? So that's, an initial opener, and then you could move forward on the basis of that actual initial kind of opener, right? What if it's really a bad time and the prospect is hurried or annoyed? You need to listen to the mood and react accordingly. Don't steamroll over them. That's the fastest way to build trust in an environment where you're not assaulting them with a sales pitch. So if someone says, look, I can't really do this right now, then, you have already given your pitch. And in that instance, you shouldn't really pitch again for a second time. So if you made your pitch and someone says, look, I can't deal with this now, it's not a good time. You say, hey, I totally understand. When's a good time to call you back? What about tomorrow at 2? Or what about later today at 3 p.m.? Do you see that what you do is you kind of sidestep the kind of objection? Don't respond with fear or nervousness. Respond in a calm and assured way, like that's completely okay and that's completely cool. And then just rearrange the opportunity for a callback. And then doing that and simply putting it into your calendar gives you a good opportunity to really then further the conversation without, feeling like the annoying salesman who won't take no or isn't really listening to what the person's saying. Suppose they say, I'm not interested, right? So this is excellent. Say, I'm not interested. Say, no problem at all. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to kind of understand, how are you currently investing at the moment? And see where that takes you, right? Or how are you currently generating leads at the moment? Or how does your business currently do X? Or who do you currently use as a supplier? So asking them a question such as that, right, lends itself to, other answers down the line. So with this, you need to make sure that you're not, really turning it into really, a second sales question. So when they say, look, Deepak, I'm not interested in lead generation, I'd say, hey, listen, I completely understand. I'm not trying to sell you anything at all. How is it that Think Advisor works at the moment in terms of, generating revenue? Like, how does it work? That's an example. And even there, I stumbled for a minute, but it's really, really good to reframe it and on that basis, further the conversation again. But what they dismiss you with, in this case, it's, I have a financial advisor. And you'd say, brilliant. That makes complete sense. We already work with a lead generation company, Deepak. We already do SEO, Deepak. Amazing. So agree with them. Say, that's great. That's fantastic. So whenever someone comes back to you saying, we already do that, congratulate them for it. Congratulate, because that's very disarming. It's very, very disarming. So, if you're a Sunday salesman and you're trying to sell someone, let's just say perfume, and they say, look, I've already got perfume. You say, brilliant. I really like talking with people who, appreciate their perfumes. So really good to hear that. Do you see what I've done there? That in agreement, you disarm potential objections in their mind and then in the future. So always be in agreement with your prospect. Always be in agreement. Don't pretend or don't say that, yeah, but you should really have a look at what we've got because it's probably better. That diminishes their judgment. That devalues what they're saying. So be in agreement, right? That's excellent. I'm glad you do. That's excellent. I'm glad you do. These are killer lines from Mike Brooks, and it's pretty fantastic. And as you said, why would that approach work? You've not pushed on that person. You've sidestepped it. You've let the objection flow while you're working around it. And if you meet, head on with someone, you create this, boom. You create a pushback effect, or you create basically like kind of the opposite ends of a magnet. Either way, you're not really moving forward with them in harmony. And this is the really key important thing when someone pushes an objection into your face. So at what point do you, let's have a look at the next question. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. At what point do you try to get a prospect to start talking, right? Now, you need to be engaging and then you need to stop. We talked about this in one of the previous videos, that you have to give your prospect an opportunity to speak, right? And you really ask a question to qualify them, okay? So remember, if it's the space of SEO, if it's, in this case, if it's the issue of financial investment, you'd say, hi, I'm Deepak Shukla calling from Think Advisor. We specialize in working with dentists like yourself to really double their investments over time. The last 3 dentists that we work with have seen a 15% year-on-year return on investment. Is that something that you're potentially exploring at the moment, Frank? No. Ah, amazing. So what is it that you're currently looking at the moment? I'm not looking at anything. Hey, Frank, I totally understand. It's pretty crowded marketplace, isn't it? Is there a reason that you stopped looking? No, Deepak, I'm just not interested. I don't want to talk to you. Frank, I completely understand. It completely makes sense. Why don't we perhaps explore this at another time? Maybe this isn't something that makes sense for you today. No, Deepak, do not call me. Do not speak to me again. So I'm giving you a series of very strong no objections, right? But with this, you answer questions quickly to see their level of interest and then to qualify them, right? So if someone continually says no along that process, then you get a sense that, right, this is not the right person. And it's really all about, the enthusiasm and the slow and measured responses to try and open conversations as they shut doors. So when they shut doors, understand, empathize, ask them another question. So when they shut doors, empathize, understand, and ask another question. So what's the best way to generate trust during a cold call? Advisors should think, I already know what the pushback and resistance statements would be, so I better doggone be prepared for them and not be thrown off my game. So showing nervousness, right? Showing nervousness is one of the fastest ways to really show that you cannot be trusted. So anticipate potential objections in your head, right? If you're cold calling for the first time, you need to maybe build your script for the first time and you're working in any of those spaces, and think about the potential objections. No, I'm not interested. I already have an advisor. I already work with lead generation. I tried it last time. What makes you different? Nah, that doesn't sound like it's for me. I'm busy right now. Who are you again? What are you doing? You sound unsure. All of these are ultimately variations of the same objections that relate to trust, that relate to interest in the service, that relate to interest in you. So trust in the service provider, trust in the salesperson on the call, right? Trust in the service provider. So it's trusting in the service, which is SEO. I trust SEO as an example. Trusting in the service provider who's delivering the SEO. It's Pearl Lemon. And trusting the salesperson who's the person on the call. It's Richard, it's George, it's Jeff. So those 3 things you need to do as much as you can to be in alignment with them. Otherwise you'll run into problems, right? So the second most important thing to promote trust in a cold call is listening. You don't want to go me, we. A prospect does not care about your speciality. I want you to care about me. Having a prepared opening as you talk and listen for receptiveness. Ask questions, see if your speciality is even a fit. And if it is, then you might say you can weave it into the conversation to add value, right? So it could be, as an example of an alternative, say, hey Frank, I'm calling from Think Advisor. We specialize, or we help people like yourself potentially, generate the most ROI from their investments. In fact, we've worked with several websites like yours to generate some really impressive up to 10%, return on investment. And I'm calling just to really understand what your investment strategy is at the moment, and potentially if there's any way that we can help you further your returns. That's an example of an opening, and then you can build in kind of qualifying questions, right? So a lot of it is in the delivery and the way that you measure it. You have to write one word that can boost sales, and it's today, right? So getting things set up at the moment that you talk to them today is really, really, key and critical. I completely agree with Mike Brooks here that if you've met with someone and then you're calling to close, let's say, let's get you started. Why don't I put you in touch with Deepak today? Are you free at 3 p.m? Amazing. Why don't I put you in touch with Frank in 30 minutes from now? Are you free? Let me check if Deepak's free and come back to you. Are you free now? These are all great examples that today the urgency is super important, okay? What if Prophet says I have to speak with my wife or husband? So a good qualifying question with something like this is, of course, is that say amazing. Remember, be in agreement. I have to talk to someone. Be in agreement, and then say amazing. It'd be really great if we could all be together on, the next conversation that we have. When are you and your wife, or when are you and Frank, or when are you and your board of directors free so we can discuss this some more? So bring that person into the conversation, and also, anticipate that happening. Another way of overcoming, I need to speak to my husband or wife. Then, one of the other things that you could ask about is, let's see what it says here, to be honest with you, because I've got some ideas. Isolate the objection, because most of the time, I totally understand. Then if you speak to your partner and they do tell you whatever you think, where would you be leaning based on your understanding? Brilliant. Okay, so that's an excellent example from Mike Brooks here. I need to speak to my husband and wife. And another dealing with it, again, empathy consistently. I totally understand. Can you think of any potential worries that she or your board of directors might have about this, what we're discussing, what we're offering, or what we've just been talking about? And then pause, wait, and see what comes up as a consequence of it. What else in dealing with the I have to speak to my partner objection? Terrific. Why don't we get her on the line? I have to answer any of your questions. Hang on, let me see if so brilliant. There's nothing really more to add here. Terrific idea. Why don't we get him on the phone? I'd love to answer any of their questions. Or why don't we connect you and Deepak with, why don't we connect you and your wife with Deepak on the phone right now? And then you can check, of course, to see if I'm available. You write that there are 3 times to handle an objection. What are they? One is right at the beginning, because you can anticipate it, correct? For example, managed fund, objection the fees seem too high. So you can say, we've gotten these for other clients. Some of them think the fees are very high. I want to address that before we go in. So you can anticipate some, objections, or, someone, if you understand an objection is always going to come up, you can kind of anticipate it. And the 2 other times, I'm really glad you brought that up. Let's talk about it. I'm really glad you brought that up. It's a great way to empathize with the potential objection, right? And that's a very good point. I'm going to show you some data. Hold on to that thought. I'll handle it as we keep going. So brilliant. Hold on to that thought. I'm going to address that. I would say that the other thing to add is that deal with the objection head on. I think it's super important, and that's something that's critical to handling objections, because they just grow in people's minds. Must you always address the prospect's resistance? Don't have to handle it. If you don't have the answer, say, I totally understand, and it's very important. I know that that's something that Deepak could address on the call, so we'll definitely come back to that. That's a really brilliant point. I don't have the data for that at hand, but know that I will come back to you with an answer on that, and let's circle back round to that later, and then keep moving on, right? They won't mention it again either. So a lot of the time people don't mention an objection again either, because you cover it in some kind of roundabout way, or their objection is, really asking something else other than what they're asking, okay? So it can often be about trust. I'm busy, send me an email. Of course, grab their email. All of this makes sense. I'm pretty busy, send me an email. I said, brilliant, okay, let me just take your email down right now. What is it? Okay, amazing. So I'll send you through some documents. Is there a better time than to follow up? Or rather than is there? So brilliant, I'll send that email across to you this afternoon. When do you think you'll have a chance to have a look at it? Or why don't we set up a call, in this time tomorrow, once you've had a look at the documentation? And they might say, I won't look at it until Monday. And you say, brilliant, that makes complete sense. So how about we speak on Tuesday? So you can further it and really get into the call. If you leave a phone message, what should it say? I prefer calling to reach someone. You could say, this is calling from, I have a quick question for you. Yeah, brilliant. This is Deepak calling from Pearl Lemon. I've got a quick question for you. My number is 07877. I'm calling from Deepak. My number is 07877, then repeat the whole message. So that completely makes sense. And as you can see, let's keep going. So we've done that. Yeah, Mike Brooks has some pretty fantastic answers. If you leave a phone message, we talked to that. Most folks have caller ID, which means they won't often pick up the phone. How do you get around that? Many financial advisors are calling on cell phones where they can block their phone number. The other option is using a service that can change your phone number. If someone doesn't want to call from, then they pretty much disqualify themselves, because what are the chances they're going to meet with you? So ultimately, you know, having a phone number that looks local is an important component of it. So we should do that. And then also, of course, you know, if someone is avoiding your call and it keeps getting blocked, you could potentially, you know, move on after the third or fourth try. How long did you flounder before you realized you needed to do? I've got telemarketing, stuck a year about. I've done open a nightclub and getting same objections over and over. This is brilliant. It's really brilliant to hear what Mike has done. 150 cold calls a day, getting the same objections. What did you do to turn things around? Commitment to learning the craft of sales. Learn that 80% of the responses, this is brilliant, are going to be the same. 80% of responses are going to be the same. So anticipate what the response is going to be in your industry, and then based upon that, and any industry that you're calling on behalf of, if you're a telemarketer, if you're a cold caller, think about the potential objections, right? You know, so if it's like objections that a financial advisor would face, objections that, you know, someone selling SEO would face, and think about them. And then how would you know what to write? Went to top producers in my branch, recorded everything they were saying, typed it out, put it all in my own words, and developed personalized scripts. Every night I'd record myself, listen to the tapes, and revise what wasn't working. I found the best script that fits my personality, memorize the script, and use it. So find the best fit for you. That's a really, really great important, because, you know, the way what works for me will not entirely work for you. Objections can be very similar. You can understand what the objections are, and then you can find a clear way to address it. You say that FAs, financial advisors, need to build rapport before, during, or after the call. Why after? Once a call is over, you have to continue rapport building. That means sending an email saying. So you can build really a canned response to this, and then adapt some certain variations of it. So something, for example, that's quite cool that, you know, we've done is add a little bit of personal detail, or something that's quite an interesting fun fact about yourself personally. So being in touch and developing, you know, a positive response once you've sent, you know, the hang up with the call. If you're, you know, telemarketing, you could CC in the relevant person, so that, hey Richard, it was great to talk to you. I've CC'd in Frank. Here's the stuff that you've asked for. Looking forward to you talking to Frank on Friday. Fun fact about us, and then introducing something. You know, this is me dancing at a disco in 19... Yeah, that's a bad example, but I think that you know what I mean by that. What else do you do along with the clients? I take a photo of them and me, put it in front of a green card. Great to meet you. Send out cards. So this is nice. Not something that I've done before, but it does make sense. I've done selfies, and you can send them the selfie, but this is probably better. What about prospects who don't sign up with you? Follow-up campaign, send them customized cards. Yeah, brilliant. So customized cards sounds really good. Send out cards sounds really good. What does your advice to cold callers invest in daily in your attitude? If you're not feeding your mind 3 times a day by reading and listening to positive thoughts, your attitude would go to negative very quickly. Yes. So continual positive reinforcement in your mindset is absolutely huge. Completely agree with Mike Brooks here. Sales solve everything. Yep. No multitasking. Absolutely. Sales solves everything. I completely agree with that, guys. The number one thing that you need to do is get the money in the bank. So sales truly can solve everything. 35 cold calls a day. Absolutely call my closers back. Nurture existing clients. Makes complete sense. Make the cold call. Call the people back that didn't, you know, actually answer, and nurture existing clients. Should finance still cold call? Depends if they've reached your goal. If they're fat and happy, very business, you know, yeah, so deepening relationships that you have with prospects that you currently work with, and looking for more referrals. So this is excellent advice from Mike Brooks. Completely concur with it, and, you know, I think that, I hope that, you know, my commentary on it helps you with your own cold calling journey.